Hi guys, so the International Trade Secretary Liz Truss was interviewed by Sky News, Sophie Ridge on Sky News, about this new CPTPP agreement or trading bloc that the UK is about to join. So let's hear what she had to say.
As we come to the end of the interview, you're announcing today that we're going to be joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is this trade bloc with countries like Australia, Japan, Mexico. Have you done an assessment of how much this will boost our GDP?
Well, this is a really fast-growing group of countries.
So that's a no. She hasn't done an assessment. So wouldn't you think that you would do an assessment before joining? No, it's because they're desperate for good stories to put in the news. So we actually didn't do an assessment on how much Brexit would damage the UK economy, but we went ahead with that anyway. And now we haven't done an assessment on how this is going to help or replace trade, but we're going to go ahead with it anyway. But this is just typical Brexit.
So some countries like Mexico, Malaysia, they're rapidly rising up the global league tables. And what we want to do is hitch Britain to those fast-growing economies. We'll see reduced tariffs from things like whiskey, cars, computer games, technology.
So let me just show you that this is Vietnam, which is a member of this trading bloc. And I just want to compare it with Germany, for example. So Liz Truss is talking about, let's replace, for example, a country like Germany with a country like Vietnam. If we look here at GDP per capita on the second line, it says here in 2018, GDP per capita for Vietnam was 2,138 euros. In Germany, it was 40,000 euros, more or less. So why is this relevant? This is relevant because the people in Germany have a lot bigger buying power. What the UK is selling is not low-cost clothing, low-cost shoes, trinkets, and I'm not disparaging what China normally sell, but the goods that the UK want to sell are generally more expensive than goods, for example, found in China, which is neighboring Vietnam. So you want to replace a market like Germany and replace it, stop trading so freely with Germany and start trading more freely with Vietnam. I'm not an economist, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And that will enable British business to export more to those countries. And
you could actually export more. There was nothing stopping you from exporting more. But you have to understand that joining this trade bloc, there are requirements. There are necessities. You have to actually, I'm sorry to say this to Brexiteers, but you need to give up some sovereignty as well.
Unlike the EU, there aren't the strings attached. So we wouldn't have a court making judgments. We wouldn't.
Actually, that's false, and it's a lie, because you would have a court making rulings. For example, it says here, this is from, I just want to show you, this is from the Australian government website, and of course Australia is part of this CPTPP, and this is just about labour laws, which the UK would have to follow. It says here, building on internationally recognised labour rights, freedom of association, collective bargaining, elimination of compulsory labour, abolition of child labour, the elimination of discrimination in respect to employment and occupation, CPTPP parties are required to have laws governing acceptable conditions of work related to minimum wages, hours of work, and occupational health and safety. They are required this. If they don't have it, there will be some sort of consequence. Now, you could say, well, of course, the UK has very high standards, but they have to be enforced. If they're not enforced, there will be a consequence. There will be a dispute. Now, in regards to labour, it says here, CPTPP parties have agreed to form a labour council with representatives from each party. So the UK would put someone forward to be part of this council. You know, a bit like membership of a club. Anyway, The Council's responsibilities will include establishing priorities for cooperation and capacity building, facilitating public participation in and awareness of the implementation of the Charter, and reviewing the implementation of the Charter to ensure its operation effectively. The Department of Jobs and Small Business in Australia manages Australia's engagement with the International Labour Organization and is a contact point for international labour issues in Australia. So if there are issues to be resolved with labour, for example, they will go to they will be part of the dispute mechanism is the International Labour Organization, which is not run by the Tory party or not run by the British government. So you're giving up sovereignty to be part of a non-government organization. Advancing social justice, promoting decent work. It says ILO is a specialized agency of the United Nations. I hope Brexiteers are not listening to this.
Have any control over our borders lost, we wouldn't be paying any money in. So this is all.
Yes, you would be paying money because if you want to be part of something, you have to pay. You don't get to be part of it for free. Okay. Every organization, I don't know if Liz Truss is part of any club where they allow you to be part of that club for free. I'd love to know the name of some of these clubs that you can be part of for free. But generally, when you're part of an organization, you have to pay something in to maintain the organization. You know, it's not something that operates out for free. You have to pay into it. Now, maybe it's not a lot of money, but in order to be part of that organization, you have to pay. I'm sorry, I don't know how much it is, but I'm sure there is a cost. It doesn't operate freely in the sense of without any payment.
All about lowering those barriers so that we can get more of our fantastic British products into those fast-growing markets. So, for example, in Malaysia, currently they're paying over 100% tariffs on whiskey. If we could get those tariffs reduced, it means more exports, more opportunities.
If we could get those tariffs reduced. Now, I don't know the situation regarding whiskey, but for example, Japan is part of this trading bloc. And it says here, for example, importation of animal parts, bovine animals frozen from outside Japan, tongues, livers, others, for example. On tongues, I know it's something we don't really consider, but this is the only information I could seem to find. It says here 12.8% tariff that's reduced down to 0 after 10 years. Cheek meat and head meat, 50% tariff. I don't know why that's the case. And then it has other aspects. So some actual products are 0 tariffs. So there is on wild boars. Okay, I don't know how many wild boars are being exported into Japan. But it's not just a case that everything is going to be free. There are tariffs. Some tariffs are reduced to 0. It would be interesting to know whether there will be a tariff on whiskey and when it will be reduced, and which countries will allow the UK to have access to the market freely with 0 tariff.
For the Scotch industry in Scotland. These things are always difficult to assess.
You have to remember that Brexiteers like to make promises that they can't keep. Remember the fishing industry.
We will produce a scoping study when we start the formal negotiations, which is likely to be later on in the spring. But fundamentally, what it is about is lowering barriers to opportunities for British business.
Without wanting to diminish the importance of signing up to these partnerships or trade deals, any assessment is likely to pale in comparison to the GDP that we lost after leaving the single market, after leaving the European Union, isn't it? I mean...
Yeah, for example, and I covered this under CANZUK, you could put part of the CANZUK countries together and the amount of trade that the UK has with them would be the same as Belgium. Okay. So yes, there's going to be an increase in trade, maybe, but it's not going to compensate for the destruction of the trade that's taking place with the European Union. You're not going to be able to compensate that. It doesn't make any economic sense. Brexit was never about making economic sense, especially for small businesses and medium-sized businesses. Some businesses will benefit from this, but many businesses will not.
The OBR estimates, for example, that a standard trade deal like the one that we negotiated would reduce our GDP by around 4% compared to the previous relationship.
Well, I don't accept the premise of that question, because all of the scenarios, the UK economy is growing.
What? I don't accept the premise of the question. So what she said wrong? You notice that she's saying, I don't accept the question, not I don't accept the data. Because she can't say I don't accept the data. Just these are more weaselly ways. Maybe she's been listening to Michael Gove for a while. These are these weaselly ways of getting out of telling the truth. The economy is going to suffer. The economy is suffering at the moment. You can't get away from that.
And we have secured now a Brexit deal which is tariff-free. Well, we've secured a Brexit deal that is tariff-free and quota.
Tariff-free and quota-free is not the problem. You didn't have tariffs and quotas before. Now there is the problem that there are non-tariff barriers, bureaucracy, paperwork that has to be completed. That wasn't the case before. And many industries, and I've covered this on the channel on numerous videos, this is damaging British business. Why aren't you sorting this out?
Free. So now we've got the best of both worlds. We can trade freely with the European Union and trade freely with these fast-growing parts of the world.
Trade freely with the European Union. There are non-tariff barriers. Does she not know that there are non-tariff barriers? Or is she pretending not to know? Which is it? This is the problem I have with many of these Brexiteers. I don't know if they don't understand reality or they're pretending not to understand reality.
And if you add up CPTPP and the United States, that's 40% of global GDP.
But you don't have a trade deal with the United States. Really, does she not understand reality here? You don't have a trade deal with the United States. And we don't even know what's going to be in that trade deal yet. Like you're saying this is going to make up 40% of trade. Okay, but first of all, what are you exporting to the United States that's going to... Yes, you can look at the size of the economy. That's important. But you can also look at the size of trade, which is important. But you have to look at what you trade to them. What do you export to these countries? Are there opportunities for exportation of goods to the United States? Yes, there are. But is it going to replace the trade that you've lost with the European Union? No, it's not. Wouldn't you try to fix that? You have this problem. You've cut yourself off basically from your biggest market, the European Union. And instead of trying to fix that, the Brexiteers are saying, we don't want to fix that. We want to try and do something else. It doesn't make any sense from an economic point of view.
That is a huge market for us to go after. We're the second largest services exporter.
We haven't got a trade deal with the United States yet, have we?
Well, we're working on that as well.
We're working on that. It's in the pipeline. It's a promise. She mentioned here, and unfortunately, Sophie Rage didn't pick up on it, on services. At the moment, there is no trade deal that includes services. How is that possible? You focused everything on fish, and fish has turned out to be a disaster. And instead of focusing on services, financial services in particular, there is no trade deal with the European Union. Why the hell aren't you trying to formulate a trade deal with the European Union on services? This blows my mind, the idea that they're not working on that. They're talking about, yes, let's talk about selling whiskey to Vietnam or sell cars to Mexico. and not services, which is massively important to the UK economy, to the European Union. Really, Brexit is like brain rot. It gets into these people's minds and they're unable to function any longer. Logic goes out the window. I'm sorry to be quite aggressive in this, but it doesn't really make any sense to me. Your biggest trading bloc is your next door neighbour. You cut yourself off from that. You don't realise that was a mistake, or you do, but you don't want to admit it, and instead you start looking around for smaller nations on the other side of the world, and you believe that can fix the problem. It's all about image. It's not about substance. And unfortunately, if you go online, you'll hear Brexiteer saying this is a great victory. We're doing really well. We don't need the European Union any longer. We can become a hermit nation. We can just trade with countries that most people in Britain have never even heard of. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?